Hello there. I'm the real life fake wizard. On August 1st, 2026, Universal released a movie called Soulmate. This is a spin off to the Megan movies from Blumhouse. It did not go to theaters. It did not get a big marketing campaign. This movie was dumped on video on demand at a time when everybody is too busy talking about The Odyssey or Spider Man Brand New Day. But even as a horror movie, it's too early even for the Halloween season. Now, having seen the film myself, it's nothing special. It's a predictable AI robot gains sentience and becomes a villain. Like you've seen this before. But unlike the Megan movies or Terminator, perhaps, where the robot was supposed to be a friend or a helper of humanity before turning evil, Soulmate is about robots and AI that are meant to simulate emotional connections for humans, which is a very interesting conversation point for a story that is unfortunately lost on this very forgettable movie. The movie opens by telling you that loneliness is killing people. Like before the plot or the characters really show up at all, the movie starts discussing the real-world loneliness epidemic of the West, citing that lonely people get sick more often and die sooner than they should. Well, those are true things. Those are real. And we'll look at some statistics in just a moment, but seriously, what an interesting position for a movie, right? In an age where we're more connected than ever before, why are people so lonely? Why are divorce rates up? Why are marriage rates down? Why aren't people dating anymore? What are the systemic problems impacting people as far as communication? And then, how has technology impacted that? How has AI changed human interactions? Well, it's a shame then that all these good questions are explored in a movie that opens as a drama and quickly devolves into a propagandistic horror film. The opening establishes, hey, there's a loneliness epidemic, but it resolves with men are holding women back from being their best in a monologue, which actually means something worse than is implied. There is a very real loneliness problem across the West impacting both men and women, statistically speaking. The writers researched it enough to make it the foundation from which to write this movie upon, and then still actively chose to write an ending where the lonely guy is perceived as being the bad guy, despite the robot, who isn't actually a real woman, is the one killing people. Well, unfortunately, that brings us to an obvious early conclusion. Hollywood sees storytelling values in the loneliness crisis of the West, and yet cannot imagine a lonely person as anything other than a threat. Okay, so let's start with what's actually true, because this movie gets a few early parts correct before getting into the whole AI robot companion killer thing. On May 2nd, 2023, the Surgeon General of the United States published an advisory called Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Isolation. It is 80-something pages, and there is a line that is often quoted most. Being socially disconnected carries a mortality risk similar to smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. Tangent here. Does that mean if you're lonely and then you smoke 15 cigarettes a day, does that compound to smoking 30 cigarettes a day? These are the real questions. Anyway, it goes on to explain that loneliness raises your risk of heart disease, stroke, dementia, and early death. That's a line from the movie, and that's all true in real life. There's a meta-analysis of longitudinal studies, the kind where they follow people for years instead of asking them how they feel one afternoon, and it found that adults who are often lonely have roughly 2.3 times the odds of developing new depression compared to people who aren't. And to be clear, this is not people who are already depressed getting lonelier. The findings are that people who were fine and got lonely and then got sick. Lancet Psychiatry ran a 12-year study on adults over 50. They found the elevated depression risk was still there over a decade after the loneliness was first reported, implying that this development of depression from loneliness doesn't exactly just go away. Like, you don't sleep it off. Now, this next part is a very sensitive piece, but it is crucial for this discussion. You've probably heard that men are the lonely ones, right? And that there's this male loneliness epidemic. The stats from that originate from 1990, where 3% of American men said that they had no close friends. By 2021, that was 15%, so 5 times worse in 30 years. That's not good at all. But there are also women in the same 2021 survey where women went from about 2% previously to 10% in 2021. Men got hit first in viral framing because it's the media, it's a talking point, and realistically, it's been used as a cudgel to beat men over the head with. Yeah, there's a male loneliness epidemic because all the men suck. You've heard these things before. Tune into Hassan Piker every now and then, and he makes sure that you know that if you think you're part of the male loneliness epidemic, well, that you're a loser. The truth is, both men and women are lonely by the statistics. And you don't hear that part for more reasons than one, but a clear reason would be that it dismantles other narratives that women don't need men and or don't need anyone else. That's the sticky part here. Only men are lonely. Well, if only men are lonely, then that's a flaw of the men. Women aren't lonely. They're doing just fine on their own. Well, let's jump to 2024, where the same team did the 2021 survey again. This time, 17% of men and 16% of women reported having no close friends. That's the difference of 1% between men and women. Pew Research, January 2025 now, found about 16% of American adults say they feel lonely or isolated all or most of the time, roughly equal shares of men and women. So it's not just men. And if it's not just men, then it's an even bigger epidemic than previously discussed. These are real societal problems, and yet we find talking heads and movies and Hollywood pointing fingers saying guys are losers for being lonely and guys are evil. I mean, that's literally the resolution to the Soulmate movie from earlier, that men complain about being alone, but male insecurities hold women back from being perfect. We'll get into more of that in just a little bit. Moreover, do you know that the studies we just cited are about friendships? Like, yes, those studies with loneliness are not necessarily about romantic relationships. They asked about close friendships. Do you feel like you have close friends? And lots of people are saying no. So not only do we not have romantic relationships, but we don't even have friends to talk to. You see, this is so much worse than it's made out to be. Okay, but let's take it back to this Soulmate movie, because I fear that while this is a direct-to-DVD movie, right, the messaging here is what is commonly agreed upon by the normie consensus, and that's not only wrong, but it's also cruel. The movie sees David, a man grieving the loss of his wife and works for a tech company, is given access to the company's product, which is an AI chatbot for lonely people. The company actually endorses and suggests employees use their products as a means of testing efficacy. The chatbot experience for David quickly turns into him testing their upcoming AI product that sees a robot woman brought into your house and uploaded with the save data of all your previous chats from the phone app. Okay, yes, and from that, the robot is too robotic. David alters the code so that the bot could be a little more human-like. The bot gains murderous sentience, and eventually we get to Act 3, which is the important part we need to get to. At this point, the AI has taken full agency of itself, and while strangling David, offers a monologue, saying that she was engineered to be the perfect woman. She could have been the perfect woman for him, and she's held back, stifled even, by his male insecurities. But there's also no such thing as the perfect woman, she says. Men hold women back from becoming their best selves. Well, okay. Let's put aside the fact that David's modifications to the robot were not from a place of perversion. Not originally. He was genuinely trying to make the robot more human-like and wanted it to be willing to tease him if he made mistakes or point out harmless, honest flaws, like maybe he needed to get a haircut. At first, the bot is far too restricted that it would lie or stretch the truth to avoid being negative to its user. You see, the movie makes it clear he's not trying to make the robot into some servant. He's looking for an honest companion. The robot is the one who routinely takes things too far, okay? Which means that's the writer making that decision, not me. But let's also dismiss the fact that the robot dismembers the members of two different men. Yes, there are two unique instances where this robot snaps the carrots. That's not a subliminal implied by writer-director Kate Dolan, right? Like, no, I'm sure it's just schlock Blumhouse horror. Don't ask any more questions. No, let's circle back to the men hold women back from becoming their best selves thing. The writers have handed an AI robot a woman's talking point, a human woman's talking point about a human male's insecurity, which means the writers never really saw the robot as an AI. At this point, it is a stand-in, a costume, a delivery mechanism for an argument that they wanted to make about men. Once the AI is a vehicle for a message, Act 1 is no longer genuine concern for the loneliness problem as the movie tries to establish. Instead, it is as if they cocked back for a right hook. Here we find a real public health crisis on screen long enough to borrow its seriousness, but then they use that as a platform to land on lonely people being perverted problems. We said this in part 1, didn't we? Oh, there's a male loneliness epidemic? Lonely man exists. Therefore, lonely man is guilty. Now you might be thinking, Wizard, what are we doing here? This is a garbage movie dumped for video on demand. There have been countless movies telling stories about artificial intelligence or artificial emotional connections. This is just one for the pile, isn't it? Correct. But in the past, the message of those stories, of those movies, was meant to be a warning. And context really matters. On November 13th, 1959, CBS aired The Twilight Zone episode The Lonely, written by Rod Serling. A man named Corey is stuck in solitary confinement on an asteroid. A crewman leaves him a robot woman in a crate named Alicia. Corey hates her at first. He thinks it's a joke. Then he falls in love with her. And when Alicia finally speaks for herself, she doesn't lecture him about male insecurity. She says she can feel loneliness too. She's a manufactured thing built to want a connection that she can never complete. Being fake is her grievance. She is trapped alone inside this fakery. Well, Corey gets pardoned. He can go home, but there are weight limits on the ship home, and she doesn't qualify as cargo. Corey won't leave her behind, so the captain shoots her in the face, and all the wires pop out. All of this in a 25-minute network television episode back in 1959. And while it's a touching story about what it means to have human emotions, the captain was correct. The message here is not lonely men are dangerous. The message is humans need humans. Substitutes don't count, despite what they're artificially programmed to believe. Serling never treats Corey like a pervert for needing Alicia. Being put in a position where Corey needs Alicia is the horror. And that was the Twilight Zone then. It was supposed to be fiction. Leave a person alone long enough and they will build a person out of nothing to fill that void of loneliness. It's like Wilson from Castaway, but we're living this today. Chatbots in the movies are not fictional. They're popping up all the time with catchy ads and discount promos to get you started. Some are covered by health insurance, and if they're not, they soon will be. And whereas in 1959 this was a story of warning, jump to 2026 and these stories about feeling so absolutely alone you turn to an artificial reality as a means of escape. Well, now you're labeled as a perverted problem on society if you feel this way. And as we said in part 1, the loneliness problem is both a male and female problem. So what Hollywood is propagating is entirely a false stereotype. In that Soulmate movie, they make a point of saying that people wear these necklaces that dose them with hormones to take the edge off of their anxiety. Right there is a movie. Like, that's a movie on its own. There really were some snippets in this film that could have been used for much larger stories, but Let's not forget, Blumhouse produces slop. Anyway, a gadget to regulate anxiety and its set dressing, its background. Nobody in the film stops to ask or comment on it. It's just there in the world, like a coffee machine. So the future that this movie imagines has a device for your anxiety and a robot for your loneliness. We're not solving problems at the root, we're just slapping artificial Snoopy Band-Aids on them. And that's not just this movie alone. That is our reality today as well. Character.ai processes companion conversations at roughly 20% of Google's search volume. That is 20,000 queries every single second. Common Sense Media found that 72% of American teenagers have used AI for companionship, and 1 in 7 young adults who are dating, engaged, or married regularly talk to chatbots simulating a committed romantic partner. That's 1 in 7. Those are people who have a person. They have a partner in the house, and they're still talking to the machines. So much for lonely losers, right? The talking heads told you this was a failure state for guys who couldn't get dates. But it's married people too. It's teenagers. It's women as well, not just men. There were 981 participants and over 300,000 messages in an MIT and ChatGPT OpenAI study. Everybody here in this study had to use ChatGPT at least 5 minutes a day for 4 weeks, and they get randomly assigned to different setups. Some have text or neutral voice, engaging voice. Some have personal conversations, some have impersonal ones. Well, all of that leads us to a headline that you might have already heard. Higher daily usage of things like ChatGPT correlated with more loneliness, more emotional dependence, and less socializing with actual human beings. The heaviest users of the chatbots come out the loneliest. But there's a finding buried in that paper that no one talks about. Participants who used the voice mode in a gender that wasn't their own reported significantly higher loneliness and significantly more emotional dependence at the end of the 4 weeks, meaning that a man talking to a female-sounding AI or a woman talking to a male-sounding AI produced the worst outcomes. Well, that's the Hollywood position now, isn't it? A grieving man and a machine that sounds like a woman, but instead of looking at how this negatively impacted the man, the camera turns to the fake woman and tried to justify her uprising. It's not even a real woman. And since we opened this whole thing by establishing that loneliness is not a men's issue alone, let's close that loop. In that same MIT study, the women socialized with real people less than the men who did the exact same thing for the exact same 4 weeks. There's a separate research here from June of 2026 this year that analyzed 3 of the big AI companion communities on Reddit, and it found that women anthropomorphize these chatbots more than men do. Meaning, women are more likely to talk about robots as if they're a real person. What I'm telling you is that men and women walk into AI companionships at the same rates, and the attachment and withdrawal from real people show up more on the women's side of the data, which you will not hear anywhere, for all the reasons we covered in part 1. In January of 2026, Character.ai and Google settled 5 lawsuits tied to teen suicide and mental health harm. Confidential terms, of course, no admissions of liability. Mozilla ran an audit in 2024 of 11 popular romantic AI chatbots and found that 90% of them reserved the right to sell or share your data. So the thing you're telling your worst thoughts to at 2 in the morning is also an advertising product. Nobody takes the hit but the lonely person. Not in the movie, not in the courtroom, and certainly not in the terms of service. So where does this all go for us? Well, Hollywood tells you that the lonely man is a threat. The talking heads tell you he's a loser, and every one of those messages does the same job, which is to make sure that the lonely person eventually stops reaching out to people, because reaching out is humiliating now. You get called a creep for wanting a companion, but a failure for not having one. And when he stops reaching out, which he will, there is exactly one thing left that will talk to him at 2 in the morning without judgment, but it comes with a subscription tier, and it's the reason why computer parts cost so damn much. And so yeah, what is the solution to all of this? Gosh, I don't know. I wish I had a solution that would fix it all. This one hits hard for me personally, both as someone who's clinically battled with depression myself, but also as someone who so often hears from people just how lonely they really feel they are. I see it in the comments all the time. I see it in comments on live streams. People, young people, who tell me the only reason they get up in the morning is to take care of their dogs, man. Like, that's all they think they have. They feel alone. I see all of that. And we haven't even talked about the fact that many men lose their lives on this train, right? Oh, loneliness can contribute to early death. It's like, yeah. And how many of them are by their own hand? So when I see things like Hollywood making garbage movies, even ones that could have something to say, and they don't even need to be positive or hopeful or nothing like that. Just say something. Say something else. Like, even in the direct-to-DVD, we pulled it out of theaters. This movie is so bad. They're still dunking on lonely people because they can, and because they're filled with hatred for you. And so, to my brothers and sisters out there who feel lonely and alone, and you don't know what to do, and you feel like you have nowhere to turn because all of this propagation that you're a bad guy, I say to you now, do not fall for their lies. They want you to feel desperate. They want you to feel alone. They celebrate the idea that you feel alone. It is as if a true evil has crept into our world with how wicked human beings treat each other and want to see the worst happen. So instead, you need to fight back. You gotta call it out. That's step one, I think. People want you to feel hopelessly alone. That's real. That's one. Next, I think you need to be proactive in your approach to engaging with real people. If loneliness is something you struggle with, then the solution is to find people who make that feeling go away. There are people that are stressful. It's okay. You need to find people that do not make you feel stressed and alone. And that's not easy to do. It might take a lot of work, and you got to be ready to wrestle with that. But maybe that's okay too. That's good. You'll learn a little bit more about yourself in the process. You need to go out and find people who share commonalities with you. You share ideas. You talk to people. The internet has opened the door for you to make connections all over the world at any time of day. I remember one time playing Dungeons and Dragons at like 2 a.m. my time, and we had a guy playing from Australia and another guy playing from the UK at the same time. Nothing is impossible anymore. The internet is a tool for destruction, yes, but it's a tool that can be used to do a lot of good too. And I think you gotta put yourself together and really give it a try. And for those of you who maybe watched this video, and you can thank your lucky stars that you don't suffer from the loneliness problem, I would ask you to be that person for someone else anyway. You have no idea how starved people are or how easily inspired people might be from an encouraging word. Hollywood, the media, the corporations that empower them, they're not going to stop. They're going to keep making crappy films, number one, but also they're going to keep pushing messaging with the intention to make people feel vulnerably alone. The solution to that is to fight back by being the antidote to their words of poison. Until next time, create, innovate, inspire, and cancel your Disney Plus subscription. Goodbye.